Welcome to this next episode of the Chi Life podcast. Today I have with me Jiri Hanus, who is a holotropic breathwork practitioner. I met Jiri quite recently. I went along to one of his holotropic breathwork. Would you say it's a workshop or a session? How would you describe that?
I think session would describe it well.
Session.
Yeah.
I went along to try it out. And it was an interesting experience, and Jiri is a really nice, interesting guy, so I thought he would be a great person to interview on the podcast. So, Jiri, can you maybe start by just telling us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, your background, and how it is you got into working with breathwork?
Thank you. Well, it's a great pleasure to be here, and thanks for the invitation. I have quite a long history with trying to figure the meaning of life kind of thing, especially when I was a teenager back in Czech Republic. So it kind of brings you to questioning, and I started doing some meditations. From meditations I went to various Reiki and Tantra actually. Osho meditations, which I really liked. Osho meditations are specific because you wear the blindfold, and then you wear the blindfold for an hour and you are doing these crazy kind of meditation techniques. You're going quite strongly inwards. He has this moment where you go through catharsis in Osho dynamic meditation, which I found really, really powerful in my kind of connecting with what was happening in my family, which was quite strong traumatic moments there during that time, and working with those modalities as a family constellation and all this really helped me to go through that time. And when I was, I think about 23, 24, still in Czech on university, I was reading this spiritual magazine, and there was a picture of a person. He was quite old, and he was trying to market his workshops, which were about making shamanistic drums. And I really liked that picture. His name was Mira Kaspar. So I went to visit his workshop, and I told him the reason why I'm here is because I like your picture and I want to see what you do. And I made my shamanistic drum. And then I started coming back to his workshops. He was doing fire walking, he was doing sweat lodges, he was bringing people from North America to hold traditional kind of like a sweat lodge with proper ritual involved in that. And one of the things he was also trying was holotropic breathwork. And holotropic breathwork has a kind of like a name in Czech Republic because it was created by Stan Grof, which emigrated from Czech in 1960s. But he came back and he taught lots of people there how to do it, and they really kind of, it boomed. And there is this kind of feel for holotropic breathwork that it's kind of like something you do when you're like struggling, when you're like searching for your identity, and but you're a little bit crazy as well because it's a very intense thing when you would tell people about what it involves and how it looks like, what you can experience. Normal people would be saying, "Oh, this is for just crazy people." So
something that people might find interesting, I found interesting. So I had heard of holotropic breathwork before doing it. I didn't know a lot about it, but I'd heard of it, and I do a lot of work with breath, and so I was like, cool. Try something different and see what that's like, learn some different perspectives, that sort of thing. And when I turned up to the session and the opening thing, people going around and introducing themselves, and there's like, and one person says, "Oh, and I'm from the Czech Republic," and then another person goes, "Oh, and I'm from the Czech Republic," and going around. So I don't know, like a third or a half of the people there were like, all from the Czech Republic. I'm like, what is going on?
Czech mafia.
And so, because for myself, like, as an interesting thing, some of my ancestry is from the Czech Republic, like 60 years ago or something. It's quite some time ago that they came to New Zealand. But I'm like, why are all these Czech people here? And then Jiri, started to explain about things. Like, okay, so Stanislav was from the Czech Republic, and people from the Czech Republic know about holotropic breathwork a little bit more than other people in the world. So I thought that was a really sort of interesting connection. So for yourself, you said in the Czech Republic it has a bit of a reputation. A lot of people know about it, because in the rest of the world, definitely some people know about it, but I wouldn't say many people know about it.
I think it's not majority even though he got a prize from our president in 2009. He got the highest honors in Czech for contribution in psychology. Even though he is. It's not something that every Czech would know. But in the circles, we are, most of the people very well know of holotropic breathwork. And even when you know about it, it doesn't mean that you go there, because it has this feel that it's quite full on practice.
Right.
It's it can really take you going through your traumas, and it could be quite uncomfortable. So people are waiting for the right moment when they are feeling that they are ready for it, and then they go for the holotropic breathwork experience.
And so for yourself, is that how you felt at that time, that you're like, I'm ready to address some trauma, or was it more just out of curiosity? What got you to
that's actually, when I'm thinking about it back, I didn't really want it to do holotropic breathwork that much, because it was not that shamanistic to me. When I started doing those fire walkings and sweat lodges, working with drum and getting into this ecstatic moments through just drumming and dancing, I was thinking, holotropic breathwork, it's not really for me. But when I started to kind of communicate with Mira, with the teacher there, I felt very interested to try it, even though I knew about it a little bit. My mom is a psychologist as well, so she kind of knew about it as well. She was a little bit worried.
She hadn't tried it herself?
No, she hadn't, but she knew of it. And you're kind of preparing to actually step into it. And then I went for it, and it was a really powerful experience. There are definitely different tiers of experiences you can get on holotropic breathwork. Very often it's kind of giving you back what you give into it. So, and I went ready, because I was studying it a little bit before, and I was really my intention was strong, and I really started breathing fast and this kind of warrior approach going into it. And my first experience was very often when they describe this being born and experiencing your memories or your imprints of what happened when you were born. So in that moment you have a couple of people supporting you. Mira was there laying on me, and you're pushing back, and you have this incredible power. So you can lift one person with one hand. They're trying to kind of give the pressure back to you, but you still have lots of kind of energy to move people around. You feel like you have superpowers in a way. But you're in this very powerful state with kind of remembering. I wouldn't say it's really kind of memory, but it's something that is deep imprinted in you, and you're kind of reliving it. And one of the thing that Stan feels is very interesting is that the birth itself and what happened prior to our time in the womb is affecting us in whole life. This is one of his greatest, one of the greatest kind of addition to psychology, which he really talks about different stages of how being born is affecting us, and how it can have positive or negative impacts on our lives. And he has those 4 matrices which he describes, which we may go into it later. But my first experience was this. It was super powerful. I didn't really felt that I myself in that moment I was experiencing something much more profound. And when that was over, the second day I experienced another another kind of type of session where it was much more calmer, and I had like visions. And this is what I find really interesting, because at the end there is integration and sharing, where you're talking about your experience. And I started to describing this totally ridiculous story of me riding a lion going down the rainbow. There was some beam going in this like a spiral, and I was like driving the lion on that. And then I kind of stopped, and sharing continues around the room. And then there was my friend, and he said, "Oh, I actually saw you, and then we were doing this and this and this." And I was like, "Oh my God, how does he know?" And there was this connection of
So
shared vision.
You hadn't told all of the vision, you had told part, and he sort of filled in other parts that you hadn't said.
Yeah. And I remember that he was writing his own line there, but I was not talking about it because it felt insane. But then he continues, and he picked up the story. This is what Stan is like talking about as a transpersonal experiences, where you can really get in touch with like telepathy and even connecting to some greater experiences, archetypal experiences, connecting with like meeting gods or reliving kind of like archetypal situation as like Ragnarok, or all those types of experiences can be relived in the holotropic breathwork. So I was very interested in that work, and I started going there quite regularly, and it was really my springboard to start going into altered states of consciousness, or how Stan is calling them, non-ordinary states of consciousness, which are the types of altered states of consciousness which allow us to experience these mystical experiences. And while I was doing that, I think that would be about 3 to 4 years, which I was actively going nearly every holotropic breathwork year I was doing. I met a couple of interesting people and picked up very deep interest in South American medicines. So I connected with a person working with Kambo and ayahuasca, and then I kind of decided to leave Czech Republic. That would be now 12 years ago. And I traveled the world and ended up in New Zealand, and here I was really looking forward to continue my practice with all these like shamanistic techniques. And I found out that there was really not that much happening here. So I went to Amazon and worked with the curanderos there, made really some met some impactful teachers in Amazon, which I'm still kind of in contact with to this day. And I picked up the Kambo medicine as some practice I wanted to do firstly for myself, but then kind of open it for people who are keen to have Kambo in New Zealand but they can't find anyone. So I did this training to become a Kambo practitioner, and I started practicing this about 6 years ago. And fast forward to today, basically, 4 years ago, when I kind of decided that it's a pity that you cannot do holotropic breathwork in New Zealand. I really found out that where Kambo is a very physical experience, very cleansing, like fast experience of going very quickly down and coming up, and giving your body amazing boost, detox. I really felt that there could be something to complement that with holotropic breathwork, which takes like 3 hours as one experience. It's very stable kind of setting where people are kind of prepared for it. The day before we kind of discuss everything, and you have this whole day where you can dedicate to exploration, working on your issues, working on stuck emotions, just having this like really stable platform on which you can just go down with this work. So I decided I would kind of try to follow the training, which took me all around the world. I went to US. I did a couple of trainings in Tasmania. I went back to Europe to do trainings there because it is quite a long process to get certified in holotropic breathwork. Stan was actually initially pushing only for psychologists and therapists to get this because it is great technique to help with the various different therapies in their practice. But over time, he opened it to all the people who are interested, but there is very strong screening about who can actually participate, and also the process can be quite long because there's lots of modules you need to actually go through to learn this. And I finished basically last this winter. I did my certification in the US. Brought it back, and you basically was on my first holotropic breathwork here, which I hold on my own. Before I was running with different teachers, but this one was the one that I did for the first time on my own. So it was great to meet you there, great connection, and that kind of sums it up. You know, I have a great feel for holotropic breathwork being something that can really help lots of people. I meet lots of people who are suffering with depression, anxieties. Like they want to work with it, but there are very little tools. And I also went through quite traumatic experience during COVID, and I was actually at the start. I was struggling for about 2 months, and I was trying to get help with the New Zealand kind of official psychological support points and stuff. And during that time, I found out how inefficient it is, and if I would have some serious problems, I would probably struggle a lot. And it just didn't give me any support that I was really feeling that it should give me. You know, so I was practicing my own things, and that kind of put me back in shape. But if I would not have anything like that, it would be a really difficult time.
Yeah, and I guess in terms of breathwork techniques, something that's quite interesting about holotropic breathwork is that it is, well, in its origin, very focused on psychology, helping people with psychological issues. Now, of course, lots of other breathwork techniques do have benefits and help the mind in different ways, but generally not specifically focused on it in the way that holotropic breathwork is.
Yes.
So I guess, and from your experience, you've attended many sessions, and I'm sure also mixing with different people with the trainings and things like that. What sort of benefits have you seen people get from holotropic breathwork? Of course, you're not going to tell anyone's names or anything like that. What are some sort of examples of the sort of benefits people have had from it?
There's many really, and there are different categories of what holotropic breathwork can give you. It's great support in the time when you're struggling. So when there is something you need to process and you cannot do it on your own, it's great. It's a great option to have holotropic breathwork group where you can go and you feel supported and you can be really open about your experience, which you need to let go of. There is one teacher in Czech, and she was saying it's like cleaning your teeth, but on a mental level. And she was saying she was running this for about 40 years, and she was saying it's a great thing to once half a year do holotropic breathwork to really release everything that is stuck and that is kind of being toxic in your mind, and like it's stuck and you can't release it. So going into those cathartic states can help you. But also, lots of people are like trying to figure out the roots of their problems, and very often they have no idea what happened in our childhood because our memory is not fully developed during that time, but also we forget because that's an easier way how to cope with the trauma. And there are stories where people remember it, their physical abuse from their father, or various different things that happened in their childhood, which really give them understanding of why they are behaving like they are behaving, why they are searching for their partners unknowingly, what they are trying to find in them. So those understanding can kind of be brought up during the holotropic breathwork. I experience having those like vivid memories of myself and my cousin on a garden, and you could suddenly see in that vision very detailed kind of small things like what clothes we were wearing when we were like 4. It's incredible, like how suddenly your brain shifts and allow you to have access to this like forgotten memories that you're not even aware that you have. And then you have those transpersonal experiences, which, as I was saying before, there's like potential of experiencing this mysterious session. Like very often you talk about this when people do work with psychedelics, because holotropic breathwork could be kind of taken as a similar thing to psychedelics, opening the same door in a different kind of pathway. And sometimes it could have the same strength, people really kind of drifting away. And very often when they come back, they can say that those kind of journeys were giving them so much understanding of interconnectedness of things, accessing the knowledge from the universe, connecting with the nature, connecting with connecting with the stones, this kind of experiences, which totally shifts your life and your way of being, much less about competitiveness and much more about supporting each other. So it's a whole massive subject, and as I was touched base on this as well, there is this prenatal experiences which we are not even aware of, but what Stan was doing, he was recording the experiences from people which they had on holotropic breathwork, and very often he found out that there is something connected with our birth, and reliving the birth, reliving this imprint that we have can affect us in a good way in the future. I have a very good example for it, which I learned recently. I'm finding it fascinating. So Stan has this talk on a conference in Melbourne on psychedelics, and he was talking about 3 main poisons in the Buddhist tradition that they are when it comes to the spiritual growth. And one of they are in the center of reincarnation circle, and they are in a metaphorical way. There are 3 animals. One is snake, pig, and rooster. The rooster is symbolizing the greed. And Stan is talking about this, and he's saying it's interesting that the normal people who don't have really much of the spiritual practice, they have the loser's mentality, which is that we believe that we need to set up goals for ourselves and aim for those goals. And there are only 2 outcomes. What can happen when we have the goal? We will even reach the goal, or we will not. If we don't reach it, we are sad and we are thinking, what did we do wrong, that we don't deserve it, or something like that. But when we reach the goal, the world's not going to change. And you wake up next morning and you're like, oh, why I'm not happy? I thought that when I have $1 million, I will be happy. Or when I'm a doctor, I got a PhD, I would be happy. Or if my podcast have 1 million views, I would be happy. And you find out, oh, actually no, it's not right. Maybe the goal was too low, and I should set it for 2 million views, or I should set it for $10 million. So it's always this kind of chase of power, status, money, or owning things. And he says this is a loser's mentality, because both ways you lose, if you reach your goals or not. And he's saying that this could potentially come from our experience from childhood. So from being born actually. Because he's saying there's like 4 matrices in the process of birthing. The first one is we are in the belly of our mother, everything is right if the mother is healthy. If she's smoking, drinking, then the womb becomes toxic, and our states of harmony are suddenly exchanged with states of stress and fear, which already is affecting the babies very badly. And we have those imprints in us from the time being in the womb. But then there is the second matrix, which is when all this kind of like womb is pressuring us, but the service is yet not open. And this is in a form like the most physical experience of depression as you can get it, because we are being literally depressed in the womb and we have no way out. And there is this great feeling of betrayal, because this kind of God being which we are inside suddenly betrayed us and is attacking us, and we are like, what should we do? There is no way out, and it's a state of panic and total distress. What should I do, right? For the small baby, not understanding it. And then the birth canal's opening, and suddenly there is a chance, there is a hope, there is the light at the end of the tunnel. And with great suffering, great strength, and great sacrifice, the small baby goes through the birthing canal with hope that tomorrow is going to be better. Because when you put all this energy into it, tomorrow is going to be a better day. And you have this goal, and you're going through it, and you have, at the end, if you survive the birth, then you have this kind of imprint that if you suffer enough, you will get the reward at the end. And that's obviously something that we came with during our birth, especially if it was like super difficult birth. There was lots of suffering and lots of emotion, stored with that. And Stan is saying, and this is something what we are then applying to all our life, always chasing some better tomorrow, sacrificing today for better tomorrow. And he kind of tracked this back to this first experience of this kind, which is our birth. And experiencing this on holotropic breathwork can lead us to much different understanding of this. And he's talking about this on the talk, that use of psychedelics and work with holotropic states of consciousness really brings you more into present, being here and now, rather than trying to look for better things in the future. I was talking a lot now.
Yeah, no, that's good. So, yes, we have talked a bit around your background and about some of the things that holotropic breathwork focuses on. Again, some people know about holotropic breathwork, but a lot of people don't.
Oh, yeah.
Including, I'm sure, a lot of people who are going to be watching this or listening to this are going to be like, oh, okay, it sounds interesting. But what do you actually do in a holotropic breathwork session? What does that actually look like? What do people do with that?
Fantastic. So, I will put it into reference with Stan's work, because Stan was a psychiatrist, professor, doctor, and from 1950s he was studying LSD, and he was doing clinical research in that, moved to US and was doing it on the universities there, funded by the government. And when this kind of shifted in 1970s, the money from government dried out, he was looking into a way how to get into those states, and because he found out how beneficial it can be if it's done in the right way, in a responsible way. He's always talking about responsible use of psychedelics. And he found out that during the sessions with LSD, people sometimes start breathing faster. And he was kind of interested in why they were doing it. So when he observed that people were doing that, at the end he asked them, why you started breathing like that at the end of the session? And they told him, it was because I wanted to prolong the session. I wanted to stay in the same zone. And then he was like, oh, interesting, can you keep going with that? And he started doing those like mixed experiences where people were having LSD and then they were breathing. And one day he was like, oh, maybe he should just concentrate on the breathing. Can you just do that for now? And he found out that through specific kind of breath, you can actually reach those states of non-ordinary states of consciousness. And he created with his wife Christina group, he created holotropic breathwork over some iterations and finally what would work the best. And that was about 1980s and 1990s. And they set up very clear rules about what is holotropic breathwork and how it should be led. And this you will find all around the world that there is clear specifics about what holotropic
standardized process.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you will get the same thing here as in New York, everywhere in the world, which is really good because you know what you will get when you're looking for help and you are looking for this kind of experience. It's gonna be always the same. There's lots of different breathworks and
Right.
there's lots of different rebirthing breathworks.
And you could easily go along to something expecting one thing and get something quite different. Yeah. And I guess if you're looking at it as essentially a medical intervention for some people, other people it's just self-help or whatever, but as a medical intervention, potentially, it's quite important that you know what it is. You know, if a doctor's prescribing something, they know what they're prescribing. They're not just like, well, you'll get something.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and that's very good that they can rely on this training which they have, because it really should bring people that you can rely to get the experience that someone prescribing it is hoping that the people will get.
Yeah.
So that's really good. And the practice goes like follows. So holotropic breathwork is very often a whole day experience. At the start, we do a little bit of talk, introduction about what to expect, and we do a screening with people, even sometimes prior they come to our circles. And during this introduction, people pair up because the holotropic breathwork is done in pair. And there are 2 sessions during the day, and in one session you're a breather, and on the second session you're the sitter. And so you have the experience of the breathwork when you're breathing, obviously, but you have this person sitting for you who is putting their focus on your experience and trying to be, if you need them, trying to be there for you. And sometimes people actually experience the sitting as the most important part of the whole holotropic breathwork session, that just being there for someone if they need something and try to support them where they are asked for. But just being present for someone is such a powerful experience that in our kind of like very hectic world, we are kind of losing this being present for someone.
Yeah, it's not often that you're going to spend 3 hours or whatever it is just focused on someone's needs. You know, you might do things with people, but you'll be here and you'll do something and go off, and not actually directly focused on someone.
It's true. Yeah. And I remember from myself that it can always be a profound experience. It could be just being there with them present, or sometimes you are actually asked to support them in some certain way. And the Stan is talking about different types of traumas, where you have the traumas which are active, which is something that happened to you, which is you could be ill, or there could be some abuse, many different kinds of abuse, and those traumas have a different impact on us than the second type of trauma, which is trauma of omission, which is something was missing. It was very often someone didn't pay attention to us. We were not given enough love, for instance. You know, there was supposed to be a bond to our parents, which was just not there. And when people are reliving this emptiness in their childhood, very often they will reach out for the sitter or for the facilitator, and then you're just being fully present when you're just holding someone's hand for an hour, and you kind of hug them as they are there, and you kind of feel the impact of just stepping into this role of supporter, being there for someone. Normally as a sitter you would take care of like bringing their water or passing some blindfold, because the experience is blindfolded very often, or just helping them to go to the toilet, looking for the tissue, things like that. But it can go also on this like more emotional level of support as well, which is very powerful. Like, people then when they come back, they need some time to kind of reconnect to reality. They arrive, it can take hours, sometimes 5 minutes, sometimes it takes hours to actually fully come back to our world after the breath work, after those 3 hours. And for the breathers, very often it's like, it's the holotropic breathwork is minimum of 2.5 hours. Very often it's about 3 hours set. And what you're going through is you have a blindfold, and there is a strong background of evocative music, which to learn what kind of sets you're playing, you need to go through one whole module, which is like 5 days where we just taught the music. And it's really about this kind of like a special wave of energy which the music is holding you when you're breathing. It very often starts with rhythmical, dynamic kind of music. Some people would describe it like a tribal sometimes, lots of drums, which supports people's breathing. And then it goes through this more emotional, more rich kind of music. You can imagine orchestra or classical music. Sometimes like movie soundtracks are good, but it's good not to use the ones that people know too much.
So they're not going to associate too much to that,
exactly,
so they can stay in their own experience.
Yeah, I was on this. I will like go to something else which I found really funny. I was doing some meditation, and there was an American teacher coming to New Zealand, and she wanted to be nice to us because we are in New Zealand, and we were doing this very deep tantric exercise. And then she put music from the Lord of the Rings from the Shire, and suddenly I was
Brings
deep
you
in
right
my
out.
process of, I'm in Hobbiton now. It was gone. So it's good to try to use the music which people are not having like such a strong associations as like the most known pieces. And then the last is really just to kind of come back down, integrate, like arrive back. When I breathe, and every person has it differently. For me, it's like going on plane. Basically, the first hour you're get going up, and then you're having this like cruising altitude where you're really kind of in those non-ordinary states of consciousness. And visions are coming sometimes. I have lots of, when you're breathing a lot, your body gets very activated, and you have strength to do things that you would normally not do, which could be also the position of your body. So you're starting laying down, but then your body starts sometimes like vibrating, even you start dancing sometimes, you stand up or you sit up and you have your hands like this, and they just stay there, and you feel this like channeling of energy through your body, which is very interesting. Or you don't, and that's really beauty about holotropic breathwork, because some people have totally kind of passive approach to it, and they just go with the breathing, which Stan Grof is describing it as you should be breathing a little bit deeper and a little bit faster, and that's it. And there is, during the session itself, no one is telling you, oh, you should be breathing more, or you should be doing this. There's no coaching in a way. It's really, everyone has its own intention, And where the journey takes you is really about your own work and your own dedication. And some people do just lay down and you look at them and you feel that they are sleeping. They don't move for 3 hours. And then they come back to you and they just start describing incredible experiences, visions, pictures from their journey. There's lots of different approaches that you can take as a breaker as well. And it sometimes takes a little bit of exploring what works for you. It is really just this guidance and connection to our own bodies. And there's this aspect of inner healer or inner wisdom of our body, which allows us to access experiences we are ready to experience, that we are ready to go through. So the good thing about this is that you cannot kind of overdose on holotropic breathwork, because it's a partnership with your inner wisdom, and you're working towards resolution of everything that doesn't work down there. So
and your body has some natural checks and balances built in when you're working with the breath. If you push it too far, your body's natural safety mechanisms kick in and go like, hang on, let's come back.
Yeah. Sure. And you can fully trust this kind of like inbuilt aspects of knowledge and inner wisdom. But also, it's scary, and your mind doesn't want to go there very often. And when you touch base on something which can be really scary, and you're going there, suddenly you may get those like feelings that you're too tired, or you actually want to sleep rather than breathe more. And it's good to be aware of that. And when you're just hitting this kind of wall, it's actually better to go through it and breathe more, and like not come back. It's really good to surrender to the process and just breathe. Whenever there is a kind of like a challenge in that, you just breathe through it. I saw people having some really powerful, strong experiences physically, emotionally, of course. You can see sometimes we give people like plastic bags when it comes that they need to purge, because purging energetically is inbuilt to our bodies as a great cleansing. So when there is a work on like some deep-rooted problems, it can come with physical purge, and it really helps understanding how like deep-rooted the problem is getting out and being removed. And this was actually happening on my certification or on my studies when I was in one of the modules. I had a friend, and he was like, he left the room when he was breathing, and the facilitator went out with him, and he was just sitting and breathing outside, going through whatever it was. And I could see him there even 2 hours after the breathwork was finished, still working on it. And then he purged, like big purge, and then he was telling it was like getting like bricks of concrete out of my body. And when it went out, it just felt that there was so much free space which you can use suddenly. You don't have to hold on this like heavy bricks. You have a new space, new energy, which can come from that free area. So that would be a powerful experience for breathwork as well.
So the process itself, if you boil it down, is really quite simple. You're blindfolded. There's music that's guiding you, and then you breathe a bit faster and a bit deeper than you normally would.
Yes.
That's basically it. But then there's other things around it that Stanislav put into to make it a safe and therapeutic thing, where you have people there to sit for you, to be, and that can be part of the therapeutic aspect, but also just for safety, because even though there's this very simple protocol or process, people can have very different experiences as part of that.
Yeah. Oh, there is also more to it, of course. You need to have a person who went through the training, because there are moments where things need to be supported in certain way.
Right. So the process is still simple, but it's all the safety factors and the guidance around that.
True.
Yeah.
It's something that they don't recommend to do on your own.
Right.
At home.
Because you don't know what's going to come out of it.
Yeah, exactly. And always to have someone who went through the right training, because it can go really intense, really quick, and people need to know how to support you in the right way, how to kind of guide you through that experience in a very non-intrusive way, which is super important. One of the key messages that there is for you as a facilitator is radical self-empowerment for people. So when they breathe, they need to be in charge all the time.
So you're just supporting them in their process. You're not trying to turn it into anything. You're just there to support them.
Yeah. There was interesting actually thing learning from me as well, but in the small things, like at the start, Christina was really good in the music, and she was preparing this great sets of various tribal, forgotten tribes somewhere from India or Southeast Asia, like Amazon. She had a great collection of music, and they were playing it. And then when Holotropic Breathwork was starting, they were trying to change the music based on the experience in the room. And we don't do this anymore, because they found out that it's already us trying to project our understanding on someone else's experience. So it's basically, and that's not helpful, because we don't know what is happening during the breath work. The famous story which we are talking, and I was sharing it as an introduction, is about this man from Scandinavia who was doing holotropic breathwork in pair with this woman around 40, and he was breathing, and he started screaming like "Rah!" And how his sitter kind of understood this is that he's kind of calling for help, and he is being emotional. So she kind of, in a certain moment, she kind of picked him up, and she started cradling him, because she thought that he's going through this being a child experience. So she was cradling him, and at the end, where they was sharing, he was talking about his experience, and he was saying, "So I was this Viking warrior in the battle, and I had a great time, lots of enemies, and I was slaying them. But then suddenly I started feeling this cradling. I didn't know what it was. So I thought I am on a boat with my Viking crew. But then suddenly there was this strange feeling of being caressed, and it didn't really fit into my experience, so I was brought out from it. So there's very little about trying to understand someone else's process, and just more like giving them what they need during that process.
And a fine line then in sort of choosing how much and what you do as support, because you're trying to support them without influencing, without controlling or directing.
Yeah, that's what it is about. You don't really want to put that much of your own influence. You're trying to be like a screen into which they can project what they need, without actually bringing your own energy or your own understanding to them. So that's one of the core things of the holotropic breathwork, radical empowerment of people breathing.
Yeah. So very simple instructions for the breathing, a bit deeper and a bit faster than you normally would. And that can encompass a lot, but it's a bit deeper, a bit faster. So it seems like there's an implication that hyperventilation has something specific to do with the process. Did Stanislav have theory, on a physical level or whatever level about why the hyperventilation plays an important role in this process?
Yeah, this is very often discussed a lot. It's potentially creation of DMT, which can bring. I'm not sure if that's what Stan was really talking about when it comes to this, but I hear it that lots of people are talking about that our body can create DMT naturally when you hyperventilate as well. So as a physical kind of like understanding why we are getting into this state, when you're breathing like that, I don't know physically what would be the real proven cause of why we are getting into those states. There is no kind of like full-on explanation to that. I know from my own understanding from the medical people, which are totally against it. In my first aid trainings,
against holotropic breathwork, or against hyperventilation.
They just say this could be actually coming back to my initial kind of description of holotropic breathwork in general. I was actually told by medical practitioners that the people who breathe more like that are crazy. We don't do that. It's crazy. Why would we do that when you bring more oxygen into your body? Why would we be doing that? But we know that there is a deep tradition in many cultures where breathwork like that plays an instrumental role in accessing the altered states of consciousness. And this is what Stan was like full on knowing about and getting inspiration from. So yeah, various different cultures are using breathwork like that. So that's basically the roots of this. We all know that our ancestors in certain time had this access to this knowledge.
Cool. All right. So, can you tell us any interesting stories? I'm sure because you've done a lot of holotropic breathwork yourself, and you've traveled around the world going to the modules for training. Are there any sort of standout, just interesting stories about things you've experienced yourself, or things that people have told you about their experience with holotropic breathwork?
Oh yeah, there is many different things that happen, and I was always those moments when this kind of connection with transpersonal experiences are happening. That's always interesting. It's always something that we remember for a long time. I like that there is this connection with community which builds. And at the start, you are in a group of people which you don't really know, and at the end, the whole kind of after one day, it kind of feels that you're much more connected. So this kind of shared triangle kind of experience happens at the end of the breathwork. I did have myself lots of visions in a way of like you can experience yourself kind of going through observation of time. I once crawled in some old skull in a desert, and I had experience of having a wind blowing sand through the eye sockets of my skull, and I found it very interesting.
Yeah.
This was about like half an hour really detailed experience of just this passing of the time in totally like not very interesting, not very active moments, just being in the passing of time and decomposing of body. But there was this story from our breathwork actually just recently, which one of the participants decided to try how the breathwork works on a transpersonal levels, and she thought of her friend, and she thought maybe I will send a message through the transpersonal realm to for her to send me a real text, but something that I would not understand.
Right.
She
From memory, it was because she was having such an interesting experience while doing the breathing.
Yeah.
It came to her mind, like as a way for her to prove to herself that it was real.
Real, yeah.
Was to somehow get her friend to send her a message that she wouldn't normally send her, and that would help her to actually recognize that what she was experiencing was a real thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Kind of stretch the boundaries and see how far it can go.
Mm.
And she was breathing in the morning, and in the afternoon when she was sitting, she said she got a message back from just that person with just emojis in it. And she was like struck with this, like they don't write to each other that often, I understood.
And I think she said this friend would never normally send emojis. This time it was a whole lot of emojis. Yeah.
And then she called her, and why did you send this to me? And she was like, oh, I just thought of you, and that I will send you something out of ordinary, something like that. So that was a very interesting story to me. That was something that makes you wonder what's possible.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. But there is many more. Like all breathwork are super individual experiences on their own. One day you really have lots of visions. The next day you are just working with the energies in your body, and you have those like profound experiences of connecting with those Kundalini energy, like seeing how it kind of affects your body, how it kind of grows, and gives you power to really just channel it in that. And it's very hard to explain, but when you are in it, you just suddenly understand that. You understand that there is something more than just our bodies. It's profound things that can happen on breathwork. Or sometimes people just they are a little bit expecting something like fireworks, and they just get one or two hints, and then they go out of it and they're like, oh, well, it would be bigger, it would be something more. But the next time they try it, something else will come. It's always different. Always in a way, there was never a breathwork which I would not get something from. It's always something that you should mentally prepare. It's a serious thing, so certain kind of intention is good to have. It could be like to be ready for it. It doesn't have to be like to solve my childhood. But I just want to grow with it and do my best. So it's like take it seriously and see what will come.
All right. Well, so an interesting, different type of breathwork. Quite different in focus and application than many of the other types of breathwork that are out there. And some interesting history. I mean, if you think about it, essentially, what you told us before, if you can't get LSD, you could try breathing. I mean, but of course, that was very much in a therapeutic sense, because the research that Stanislav was doing with LSD, it wasn't just like, oh, let's see if we can get out of our head. It was for therapeutic application. And to then see the bridge between that and what you can do with your breath is an interesting observation and insight into, beyond that, just our body's own intrinsic healing power. And to be able to use the breath as a way to tap into that rather than relying on external substances necessarily. I think that's a really wonderful thing. So thank you very much for telling us all about holotropic breathwork. My understanding is that you're now running these on quite a regular basis here in New Zealand.
Yeah. My plan is to offer those as one-day deep dive sessions in a way, where we start on Friday with all this kind of prep work. So on Saturday we can just go straight into work, and it goes all day. And those I will want to run in Auckland every second month or something like that. But for myself, the breathwork works great when there is more time even than that, because you need some time to integrate, and it's great to have this kind of deep connection with people you are going through the breathwork with. And the great thing is to actually have not just one breathwork but two, where they kind of both experience, support each other. You know? So there will be more like dedicated retreats, which will start on Friday or Thursday night with a sweat lodge, which is a beautiful opening for having this kind of experience, and then go all the way to Sunday with closing and integration on Sunday. So those, I think, could be really transformational experiences, because you give yourself time to actually shift things. You know, it's not just a couple of hours. Our bodies very often don't work like that. You need to really create time for change to happen, and those weekends are very often the platform that it's run around the world when it comes to holotropic breathwork. So yeah, that's the plan.
Okay, so people have the opportunity, whether it's they just want to give it a try, obviously coming to it with a serious intent, you know. But if people are, well, I'm curious, I want to give that a try, they have opportunity to do that. Or if they want to go deeper, or if it's something that they want to work on over a period of time, you'll be running these regularly enough that people can have one session and then later on another session, and work through a process in that way, if that's something that they want to do.
Exactly. Yeah.
Cool.
Well.
We'll put some, at least a link or some links. I don't know what links you have. We'll put some of those in the description. So if you're wanting to either just get in touch with Jiri, or find out more about what he's doing, or see the dates that he's doing sessions on, you'll be able to find those links and find out how to get in touch with him.
Perfect. Thank you very much. The next session is happening on 9th of December, Friday and Saturday, but there will be more. And I'm on Facebook, Holotropic Breathwork out there.
Okay, cool. Good one. Well, thank you very much. Interesting interview.
Great to be here. Thank you so much.